welcome. You're watching Tea Time. I'm Chetty Narula. We're at JP Greens at Greater Noida, and my guest today on the show travels the world. He's a globetrotter. Why wouldn't he? He heads Air France-KLM in India. And today on the show, he will be dissecting the Indian aviation sector in much detail. I'm privileged to have Yeshwant Pawar on the show with me today.
On the show this week, we have Yeshwant Pawar, GM South Asia, Air France-KLM.
The rupee has devalued to an extent it never has before. That makes business very expensive.
In news, Adam Scott shot a bogey-free 66 to win the Barclays in FedEx Cup opener. And Gaganjeet Bhullar honoured with the Arjuna Award.
Yeshwant Pawar, welcome to Tea Time.
Hi.
It's good to have you on the show.
Likewise. Thank you.
So you globetrot all over the place. You're an expat. You're heading Air France-KLM. I mean, we're no stranger to globetrotting, are we?
No, well, I've been an expat for 32 years. I left India in 1978.
Right.
And since then have moved 10 jobs. And I'm lucky and fortunate that the company decided to bring me back to India.
Interesting. So now let's talk about the Indian aviation sector in much detail as we walk over to my tea box as well.
Sure.
We're seeing steep financial losses in this sector. It's going through a bit of a tough time in terms of the hostile regulatory environment and many other aspects which is really bogging the Indian aviation sector down. But however, having said that, a lot of industry estimates are pegging that this sector is likely to see a revival in 2013. And I know that aviation companies are in disagreement with that. What do you have to say about that?
Well, first and foremost, I should say that you cannot ignore the burgeoning travel market in India.
That's true.
I think more than one person, including our minister, Mr. Ajit Singh, has said that by 2020, we expect India to be the third largest aviation market.
Absolutely.
I don't think possibilities for that to happen are realistic. However, if you look at the current environment, if you look at the results that were posted in the first quarter ending June 30th for the Indian Airlines, the results were quite disappointing. On top of that, analysts estimate that the second quarter will probably deteriorate. Now, this is on the back of a hostile cost environment. You know that the rupee has devalued to an extent it never has before. That makes business very expensive. The good thing is that the Finance Ministry only mid-August announced the formation of TARC, a Tax Advisory Reform Council, that is going to look at benchmarking countries where tax regimes are good. And the second thing they're going to look at is to remove all the ambiguity that surrounds tax application and its implementation in this country. So there are signs, yes, but still a lot of challenges.
Well, a lot of signs for revival. Having said that, Yeshwant remains cautiously optimistic in his stance, but it's time now for me to be superbly optimistic and tee off.
There you go.
Much better.
Yeah, good shot.
Now you mentioned, Yeshwant, that the Minister of Civil Aviation as well, Ajit Singh, has pegged India to be one of the third largest aviation markets by the year 2020, and that's his forecast for the aviation sector. What kind of investments do you foresee in the years going forward for us to get to that level?
I think we need to create an environment where, based on the opening up of the FDI, that more foreign airlines are interested in investing in this climate.
Right.
The second issue, the tax regime needs to be implemented in a way whereas India becomes competitive with benchmark countries. The third thing is we need to manage our costs better. If you look at the burgeoning costs that are being applied by the Airports Authority in Delhi, Mumbai, and soon to be Bangalore as well, these costs are prohibitive. These costs make our life very difficult as airlines.
So what is your game plan really for Air France-KLM in India? What kind of footprint are you expecting? What kind of investments are you likely to make? What is your broader strategy for the country?
One is to be the most preferred European airline. The second is to maximize our efficiency, because even in difficult times we find opportunities, and aviation, not only in India but in Europe, has been through difficult times.
Absolutely.
Air France-KLM has been going through a difficult time, so we need to continue focusing on our efficiencies. Be an attractive place to be employed. That's also key.
Now, one of the most game-changing parts of the Indian aviation reforms and regulations in the country has been the government allowing 49% of foreign direct investment in Indian carriers. On an average, the rest of the countries will offer you something to the tune of about 26%. Do you think the Indian government itself is committed to reforms in this sector?
I have to say yes and no, and I'll explain why.
Explain, sure.
Opening up 49%, that's a huge step. I think also with the open skies policy that we have in India, this should encourage, if all the conditions are right, for foreign airlines to invest in India. It's already no secret, Etihad and Jet.
And Jet, yes.
The current situation, however, and I then give you my personal view, does not encourage foreign carriers to think at this point in time it is worthwhile investing, even if it's 49%. And it's for the reasons I just mentioned earlier. Cost climate is too high. Fuel costs are high. The tax regime is ambiguous, not clear, and in my personal view, also excessive. So all the right elements are there, but a number of changes need to be made.
Taking cue from what you just mentioned about the changes that you would like to see in the Indian aviation sector, given the strict tax regimes and what have you, if you were sitting on the decision-making chair to decide well for the Indian aviation sector, what would you go about doing as Yeshwant Pawar?
Wow.
And not as somebody who heads Air France-KLM.
I would do exactly what the Finance Ministry just announced,
right,
in the middle of October, that they will set up TARC. This committee is charged, I believe, from what I've read, with the responsibility of benchmarking with countries where tax regimes are modern, which allow an investment climate and remove ambiguity. Those are the two elements that need to be addressed. I'm not saying we need to be a tax-free country. Far from that. Absolutely not. But we should not forget India is not on an island. We compete with the likes of the Gulf states on the right and with all our Asian neighbors on the left, Singapore, Thailand. Why on earth, I'm sorry, I ask you a question, does Thailand get twice the number of visitors than India does? There is a structural problem.
Absolutely. So there have been some airlines in India that have sought foreign collaborations, which is great news for the Indian aviation sector. I mean, the Jet and Etihad being one of them. What are your plans around that?
It's no secret. Air France-KLM has always wished to have a partner in India. The recently announced code share agreement, Air France-KLM with Jet Airways, is a sure sign towards that. We realize we want to have better penetration in the second, third tier cities as well, not just in the metros. And the code share agreement just now with Jet Airways is a good positive start, and we think we will benefit mutually, Jet Airways and us, from this. But we want to remain agile, we want to remain aware, we want to see how things develop, because India is strategic for Air France-KLM. It cannot be ignored. We just want the right conditions, and we're waiting for that.
So Air France-KLM, they're big on expanding their footprint in the country. We're going to remain in conversation with Yeshwant Pawar of Air France-KLM on the other side of this break as well. Good time now for us to take a breather on tea time. Yashwant and I, Chaiti Narula, we will see you on the other side. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on Tea Time. Now, we were discussing about investments in the aviation sector. Now, for many airline carriers, it's like putting the cart before the horse. Investment scenario remains weak, considering we have a weak framework in this country when it comes to regulations as well. Do you think investments in this country are not going to be that forthcoming, given the weak framework that we're operating with?
I think if the weak framework persists, then you will regretfully, in my view, not see more investments coming in at this time. However, as I said earlier, you cannot ignore India and the burgeoning middle class and the volume it provides. And therefore, I'm hoping that in the coming months, as now shown by the Finance Ministry, to take really decisive steps to improve the tax system, if others would follow in suit, then I think they would create an environment where people want to come and invest, because investment means you want to get a return. And in today's climate, I don't think you can get a return.
What does your outlook remain on ATF prices? Because that's a massive challenge in this country, because airlines are going through steep financial losses right now. What are they doing about controlling the prices of ATF in this country? What kind of challenges are you posing because of the prices remaining so high?
Well, it's one of the cost elements that poses a huge challenge.
A huge challenge.
ATF pricing is, if you benchmark with countries that you would say are relevant to India, then you would say the taxation again comes into play on ATF, and the prices you pay in India on ATF are one of the highest. Which, by the way, is not that different from the new airport climate as well. Delhi airport is now one of the most expensive. Aircrafts are scarce resources, and airlines are going to put those aircrafts, investments, where they get the best returns. Sure. And if you have a cost climate that's so excessively hostile and high, it's your guess if more airlines will continue to invest.
Would you peg these prices going higher and higher, or do you think there is a chance that it will go lower as well in the near future? Will they have to make it lower?
I think if the trend on the rupee is arrested, because that's a major component as well.
Yes.
We've reached levels we've never reached historically. So I think we have to start there. So clear, decisive steps need to be taken. Increases may be applied, but let's do so in a justifiable manner. In the way the airports have applied increases, it's not unjustified at all.
The volatility in rupee, or rather the declining rupee as well, poses to be quite a big challenge, apart from the ATF prices remaining high. What do you have to say about that?
Well, the math is simple. It makes doing business more expensive. I'll give you an example. Domestic carriers, Indian carriers, wanting to lease aircraft, it's going to be more expensive for them to lease.
Right.
So that is not going to sustain the growth that they might be wishing for. Mm-hmm. As a Euro company as well, I can tell you that it hits us pretty hard. And regretfully, we cannot allow that to stay. So we have to take measures. One of the measures we have seen when currencies are devalued in other parts of the world is fares go up, because airlines want to compensate for that devaluation. And I'm very clear on one thing. I, speaking for Air France-KLM, want to provide the Indian consumer with good competitive airfares. And this will disallow us from doing that.
Time now for us to continue our game, and we discuss this in more detail.
Better, some elevation. No, to the right. But it's on the dancing floor.
Oh, it's on the green. It's lovely. So now let's discuss about Air France-KLM. You're going through a bit of a consolidation from what I understand. Any plans of capacity addition or expansion?
Air France-KLM consolidation actually took place in 2004. Was the first cross-border merger. If you look at India, we fly today, including Delta, because we are GSAs for Delta, who fly daily flights to Mumbai. We fly 34 flights a week, which is approximately 9,500 seats a week. At the current time, we're not in a mood, to be honest, to increase that. We want to stay agile, really watch the developments closely. I should also tell you that in 2009, we shut down Hyderabad and Chennai. We were operating there. But that's when it started, and regretfully it hasn't improved. That is not to say we will ignore any chances of growth. And who knows, with the code share with Jet, at least in the short term we see the growth, but also in future, depending on how these things develop, we expect to increase our footprint in the country.
Interesting. So, all right, at this point of time, Air France-KLM decides to remain under consolidation, and it does not look at any capacity expansion in the light of the tight regulatory framework in the Indian aviation sector. We're going to take a breather and we're going to move on to our cart and discuss a little further about the airports and about your personal journey into golf as well. Take a break. Yashwant and I will see you on the other side.
Great, thank you.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us on Tea Time. Now we were discussing about you staying under consolidation. Let's hit the ecology of the Indian aviation sector now. You've got the privatization of new airports under the joint venture and PPP model as well. And you're also seeing a lot of greenfield development projects coming in the aviation sector. What is your take on that?
These signs are fantastic for the travel industry in India. Particularly the development of greenfield airports, second or third tier cities. This is because if you look at the current access, which is not possible because we do not have airports where aircrafts can land, I think people, or rather airlines, will create more demand by opening up the second and third tier. With the improvements on the airports, the international airports, these airports, you could argue, have become world-class. Only question is, because initially the idea is also to create India as a hub between Europe and the Far East, so people should connect through these airports. But if you look at, again, sorry to come back on the current cost environment, it's arguable if people are going to choose to connect versus a Dubai or a Bangkok or a Singapore through India.
Now, the IATA has reported that the worldwide shares in airline prices rose 3% in July as opposed to June. But there has been, the aviation sector, of course, has underperformed in the broader market, so as to speak, as well. The major causes that the IATA is stating is because of the shrinkage in the Asian economy and the dwindling confidence in the Chinese economy as well. What do you think are the other concerns, apart from these that I just mentioned?
Thankfully, Africa is performing very well. In Europe, depending on the country you talk about, there still exists a recession. So there is problem in Europe. But North America and the results of our partner Delta are a clear sign that the United States is back. Clearly, we try to take advantage of that. Our joint venture with Delta Airlines is the largest joint venture in the industry. And we will continue to consolidate where our investments are giving us a return. The 3% estimate that IATA has given is a clear indication that the industry is back. I believe it is. I believe, and my management believes, that Europe will come back, France-KLM will come back. So we stay cautiously optimistic. But indeed, there are certain pockets, and Asia no longer is the lion or the tiger.
We're talking about lion and tiger. Tiger Woods influencing your game of golf. You were talking a lot about Tiger Woods earlier offline. How much does he influence your game?
Very little, because I cannot copy anything he does. But he is an idol because he's achieved so much in such a short span of time. He has proven, after going through a low, that for somebody of his quality, in a game like golf, it is possible to come back, and he's back to being number one in the world.
Well, so Tiger remains on the top of the charts globally. Who is the lion of Indian golfing world, so as to speak, in your opinion? Who do you look up to from the emerging golfers of the country?
For me, Gaganjit Bhullar is for sure.
Unanimous opinion for many.
Yes, and I believe he might be in line for an Arjuna award, which I think he deserves.
That's lovely. What about your corporate tournaments? You travel all over the world. How much of golf do you pursue?
I should tell you that KLM has the KLM Open in the Netherlands, which is a professional PGA golf tournament. It's a big tournament where the world's top players play. Also on our frequent flyer program, we have the ability for our frequent flyer members to join a program that is called Flying Blue Golf. And all you have to do is click in and become a member, provided you're already a member of the frequent flyer program.
And what happens when I do that?
When you do that, for instance, if you're an avid golfer, you do not pay for your golf bags.
That's lovely.
If you want lessons on golf, you can go on our website and get lessons. And you can connect with other golfers. It's a tremendously
golf-friendly airline, I must say. When are we seeing another tournament of KLM? Of course, not in Europe, but in India.
Yes, we have plans. I've been in the country 10 months, and I think it is important because there's a growing interest in India, and we want to take advantage of that.
Well, on that note, let's complete our game, I guess. So we'll just go over to the green now.
Thank you. Well done.
Had a bit of a lip out there. So on that note, I'm looking forward to the KLM tournament in India as well, as and when it happens. All the best for you for that tournament and Air France-KLM going forward as well. On that note, that's a wrap from Yeshwant Pawar and me, Chetty Narula, on Tea Time. I will see you next week again with another interesting guest from another entirely different sector. Until then, you enjoy the flight of a good drive. And of course, as cliched as I may always sound, may the sport be with you.